Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, I'm going to talk about one of the worst rated Rocky movies, probably the worst rated Rocky movie ever. And I think this was the only Rocky movie I watched as a kid, because I didn't have the movies on home video, and it was the only Rocky movie that I saw that was broadcasted on television. And I know that the Rocky movies were inspirational, but I feel like Rocky Five, which is the mo worst rated Rocky movie, and I remember as a kid, I hated that movie because it made no sense to me, has some valuable lessons to it. Now, if you do a Google search on Rocky Five, it's considered to be a failure. Take a look here. So it says right here, why did Rocky Five fail? The film received generally negative reviews from critics with criticism for its screenplay, characterization, continuity errors, and medical inaccuracies. Stallone later expressed regret over the outcome of the film. It is usually considered the worst film of the Rocky series. And so this was going to be considered the final Rocky film, 1990, and then we didn't get a new Rocky film until like 2006. So 16 years, we didn't get a new Rocky film, right? So this film was supposed to be the final one, and I think it was supposed to be like the franchise killer. But Rocky came back, and we have Creed, and I actually really like Rocky Balboa from 2006 and the Creed movies, although I don't really like Creed 2. I do like Creed 1 and 3. But back to my point, um, lessons from Rocky 5, right? And so if you don't know the plot of the story, I'm just going to kind of briefly go over it. Now, let me give you the biggest issue of the film for me when I was a kid. I just thought when I saw it, it made absolutely no sense. So what happens is that Rocky's broke, but he finds an up and coming champ named Tommy, right? And with Rocky's help, Tommy becomes a champ. And then, long story short, what happens is that Tommy betrays Rocky, and everyone say like, "Oh, Tommy, you're not as good as Rocky." And then Tommy challenges Rocky to a street fight, and then Rocky beats him to a pulp, and he loses on the street. Now, I remember as a kid, I was thinking like this makes absolutely no sense because if somebody mentors you and with their help that you get to the top, with their help you get to the top, why would you ever betray them? And I realized this is actually more common than people want to admit, right? Like to me, it made no sense because it's just not in my nature to do that. And I'd be so grateful if somebody actually helped me because, you know, finding help is like so hard, especially nowadays. But if somebody actually mentored me to the top, there's no way I would actually ever betray that person because I'd be just like, man, this person, he'd be like my Mr. Miyagi, right? Like you ever watch Cobra Kai where like in one of the first episodes, Mr. Miyagi is like there's the grave, and then Daniel LaRusso is going to the grave and saying like, hey, like, with much reverence and respect, like, I need your help and wisdom, Mr. Miyagi. And he actually did betray Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid 3. But my point is that he has a lot of reverence for Mr. Miyagi, and he doesn't like challenge him to a fight thinking that he's better than him, right? But in Rocky Five, it was he trains Tommy to get to the top, and then because of Tommy's ego, he challenges Rocky to a fight, and nobody wins, and it was kind of depressing, right? And that's why it absolutely made no sense to me. But now that I look and reflect on that film, I'm like, wow, this is actually real life, because how many times have you been in situations where um, you wanted to help other people, maybe you want to mentor them, or maybe you had a mentor that you were willing to work hard for, and they just wasted your time, betrayed you, um, you know, things that would break your heart. And that's happened to me many, many times, even when it didn't make any sense to do so. Like I grew up in a wealthy area, so I didn't grow up in one of those areas where like, you know, there was a reason to betray other people because there was such a lack of whatever, right? There was no scarcity, at least in the wealthy, in the material sense. But I remember just like feeling disappointed because every time I wanted to learn and grow with somebody that I knew and I had like high hopes for them, they ended up just wasting my time, and I would just be heartbroken that who do I have to learn and grow with? And it doesn't matter what position you are. I remember when I was a student, I was just like, man, my teachers suck. But I hope that when I become a teacher or something like that, I've appreciated students, but I've been in positions where I was a student, the teacher sucked, I was a teacher, the student sucked, and I realized that, you have to get to a point that no matter what happens, you're going to put your best foot forward, even if the other person doesn't. And this is kind of the same way you have to operate your business. Maybe your customers suck. Maybe your employees suck, right? Maybe the people you're contracting with suck, right? But you have to put your best foot forward. And even if people betray you, work in a way that you can get up the next day. Hey, it sucks. But if people do what they're supposed to do, it's fantastic. It's kind of like loaning people money, right? Like if you loan other people money, just expect that unless, you're actually doing things the right way, like a bank where it's all professional. Um, but I'm just talking about like loaning, friends and family members, um, just money and hoping they'll pay you back. If they pay you back, fantastic, but just assume that money's gone. And that's the same I would assume that would happen with, your personal friends and family, right? Like, are they going to do what they're going to do? Or the people that you grew up with, are they going to betray you for some petty stuff or just kind of sit and do nothing, right? And here's the thing. Here's how there's a saying I heard a long time ago on the radio about people in general. It's like, wow, most people would rather steal $1 from you than make $1 million with you. And when I heard that, I was like, man, that's essentially Rocky Five, right? That's essentially Rocky Five. And I was like really depressed when I was a young adult because I was looking for people to learn and grow with, and it just seems like nobody was there who wanted to learn and grow. It was almost kind of like Squid Game. People who I grew up with, maybe family members. I just feel like everybody was there to kind of eliminate me rather than learn and grow with me. And that's why there was a time, if you look at a time in my life, I just didn't do anything in my life because I was just like, what's going on? And me being confused. It was like when I watched Rocky Five, like, what's going on? Why is Tommy betraying Rocky? Rocky got you to the top. And I'm not saying I'm getting other people to the top, but I'm just saying I was at a certain point where I wanted to learn and grow with other people. And they didn't want that. How many times have I experienced where people just did nothing, complain, and act like I was the worst person ever? People did that many times to me. But nowadays, if people do that to me, I'm like confused because I'm in a position where I don't need them and they probably need me, and people will still do that to me, right? What's funny is that people did, one of the people did that to me in like a Zoom call where I'm just telling like, hey, it's this much money to join the group. And then one guy was complaining about like, oh, why don't I do this or that? And I'm like, yeah, right. Like I need you. Actually, I didn't tell him that. I said that in a much more diplomatic manner. But I was just like, yeah, right. But that's the way that you have to be, right? You have to be in a position where you have such a firm foundation. And if you're going to mentor people and they don't do what they're supposed to do, or they're going to complain, you find a way to either kick them out so that, you can do what your course of business the next day. Because what happens to a lot of people is that they essentially get betrayed and they're emotionally devastated. And that's, if you're a good person and you have leadership qualities, I don't want you to be at a point where you've invested so much in other people that you literally just can't get up the next day, right? Because it's happened to me before. I know it has. And every time that did happen to me, I was like thinking of Rocky Five. I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I living this right now? And I wasn't even at a point where I had any signs of success. All I remember was that anytime I shared an idea, people wanted to shut me down and eliminate me, kind of like Squid Game. And I don't want that to happen to you. But again, if you're at a position where you're trying to grow and find people to learn and grow with, and they're betraying you or they're wasting your time, watch Rocky Five. It'll all make sense to you. Or read the 48 Laws of Power, either one. But again, so this is why I'll probably watch Rocky Five soon, but sometimes, I tell myself I'm going to do certain things like watch Rocky Five or watch A Christmas Story because it's Christmas, and I tell myself I'm going to watch it every single year, but I never do because I know it's an iconic movie, but not as iconic as Home Alone. And I kind of do want to watch it just to say it's in my bucket list. I've watched it once. But back to my point, if you're at a point where, hey, like, you want to partner up with other people and learn and grow together with them, and they betray you, just watch Rocky 5 because it'll make more sense to, it won't make sense before it happens to you, but it'll make sense after it happens to you. Okay, have a great day, everybody, and we will speak next time.